عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, Jazakumullah khairan firstly for inviting me. It's actually my pleasure to be able to join you. It's early, but not too early. We're used to getting up at this time. And yes, we've returned from Palestine, where we have a number of projects, both in Jerusalem and in the West Bank, charity projects that we support and run. As we run many others across the world, which I will briefly explain to you about. So it's only 2 hours ahead. So actually, coming back to UK is great because we get an extra 2 hours. So having said that, very briefly, I won't bore you with the details, but I'm actually, my proudest thing is that I'm a grandmother of, mashallah, 13 grandchildren. So that's my achievement, I guess, in a sense. Very happy to be around my grandchildren. This work that my husband and I are doing, it sort of came in a very ajib way, in the sense that the prophetic medicine aspect, because my background is different. I'm a researcher by background. I've started my career as a teacher and then sort of moved into university lecturing, research primarily, and running many community-based projects. But I won't bore you with those details. And so along the way, acquired various skills: project management, project development, community regeneration, fundraising, marketing, variety of things, heading up teams, heading up budgets and things like that. And then sort of researching primarily at the University of Central Lancashire in UK. International research projects, projects that help form, shape policy for government. So that was essentially my background. But 20 odd years ago, my husband and I were in India, and that's where I first of all met my first teacher, when somebody said, "Oh, you have a health and social care type of background. Why don't you go and see this person who does ilaj, treatment?" And off I went to see. And guess what? I really didn't understand what was going on, because this elderly gentleman, who's now my first teacher, was treating people, but in a very I guess what I thought at the time, and in a very different way, unorthodox way, because I guess like most of us, we have been raised in a system which is all about going to your doctor if you're ill, and then sort of following the advice, the suggestions that the doctor, your GP, your general practitioner, and if you go to hospital, your consultant advises, guides. And that's, alhamdulillah, I'm in good health, so I've never had to do that, but generally that's what happens. And so I didn't really understand, because there was a bit of honey given to people, there was some dates, there was what we now know as habat al-barka, the black seed, and various other things, herbs, as well as spiritual guidance. But then I didn't really understand that. I went away, and the next year when we went again to India, then I was curious to go and see my ustad, and that's what started off the process for me to think, subhanallah, what is this? And I asked a few questions. I asked if I could observe, and then I began to get curious and interested in this area. And then what happened was, then over the next 20 years, as we do, we start to turn back to Allah and the Quran in a much more dedicated way. I was reading the Quran, and of course there was the mention of 25 prophets, and I thought, subhanallah, I want to go to these places where the prophets are mentioned, at least go and visit. And that's again started my journey, whereby we were traveling, and we traveled everywhere, and all across the Muslim world, Islamic countries, you name it, we've been there. And then I thought, I'd like to go and see if somebody's, doing treatments. How are people doing treatments in the Middle East? How do they do it in Turkey? How do they do it in Yemen and in Syria and in Iraq and Palestine, and so on and so forth? And that's what started my journey, traveling, and then opening, visiting places, Egypt and Morocco and Tunisia. And we didn't really know where the teachers would be or where the practitioners would be. but just make dua, Ya Allah, guide us. And you know, how did we find out? Well, basically, you talk to the taxi driver, you're in masjid, you talk to the sister next to you and say, is there somebody who practices, you know, herbal medicine, alternative medicine, and they guide you. And that was really how my journey started. It wasn't really formally, because formally my education has been completely different. So it's been completely different. Anyway, so very quickly then, you know, when you have sincere intention, you make dua, then that starts the process whereby doors began to open. Found one person, another, and went back and went back. So 20 years of traveling, back to India, back to Turkey, back to Morocco, back to Iraq, back to Palestine, through Syria, Yemen, Oman, you name it. And that's still what we continue to do. So all in all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened up doors. And what I found was there was people doing various, there was the herbal side of things, there was the Unani side of things, there was the Chinese medicine, there was Ayurvedic medicine, there was people practicing Tibb, but not in you know, they were doing just very one-off things. And eventually, when I managed to, what I would say, you know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought the teachers in my life, they started to train us and really train myself. It was mainly myself, but obviously I needed a mahram, so dragged my husband with me. Let's go. And so essentially that's what it was: sitting with teachers, finding practitioners, and I, you know, eventually asked, as you do, would I be able to do this? And you know what they said? My teacher said, go and do khidmah. Go and do khidmah. Okay, but aren't we doing khidmah now? Go and do khidmah. So essentially they were saying, go into the community and go and see what the issues are, what their needs are, and then learn. And although we think that we are learning, but actually it's just tip of the surface, although I've done community work and community regeneration, but we don't actually go. So it was sitting with people, sitting with the elders, talking to children. And we started then a food parcel, as you do, started an exercise activity, started a men's support group. There was a lot of refugees coming into UK and from at that time as well. And we were doing these allotment projects, all trying to reach out into the community. And eventually then had ijaza to do some, what I call at the time, very preliminary a type of support, ilaj type of work. And along the way, I started to study Islamic counseling and various other, you know, related aspects of what I now call prophetic medicine, pulling it all together. And so the teachers gave permission. And so eventually, slowly started to do ilaj. But they kept saying, go and do khidmah. And so from that is where our charity side developed. We now have charity projects in Africa, in Zimbabwe, in Sudan, in Gaza, in Palestine, in India, Pakistan, Rohingya, Bangladesh, Yemen, and Mauritania. And so this is how the project started to come one by one. So almost 10 years ago, eventually we had permission to then go and do ilaj. So all of our ilaj, our treatment, is using the knowledge that we've acquired through prophetic across so it's a combination of primary, but everything what I learned, it took me straight back to the prophetic way, because essentially the prophets have come, that Allah has sent prophets, but across the whole world, not just to obviously to the Middle East, across the world. And so there's knowledge in every country. And we, you know, are able to tap into many aspects of that knowledge and pulling it all together, inshallah ta'ala. So that's who I am, and that's how I've got to where I've got to. And about 10 years ago, started to run the service that we do, a number of services, you know, and if you go onto our website, you'll be able to see this. We've just got the website upon there. You can see the services that we're providing. There's not the room to put everything on there, but needless to say, we do collect zakat and sadaqah for donations for our various projects and the other services. So as we were sort of going into the community, doing the khidmah, doing some of the services, we were traveling, and so a lot of the people, a lot of the older people said, look, you're always traveling. Can you do something for us? Can you take us somewhere? So I spoke to my husband, and he said, let's take them to Turkey. Turkey is a nice place, and they'll have a lot of facility there. And that's how then our trips began to occur, that we were taking people on various locations. And we've been everywhere with lots and lots of people. Anyway, so coming back to prophetic medicine, 2 years ago, my teacher said, actually before Corona, so it was about 2017, 2018, my teacher said, you've got to go and teach now. Go and teach this. Go and tell people about prophetic medicine, Tibb and Nabawi. And I said, oh, how do we do that? Anyway, so from that, they said, just go, Bismillah, off we went. So we were really, before lockdowns, for almost a year and a half, we were traveling up and down the UK every weekend, anywhere, anytime, anybody invited us, we were going, and we were teaching what I've put together, a course, an introduction to prophetic medicine, which pulls together my knowledge, my expertise, to enable people to understand. And I guess now I understand why they said, because they had inspiration, or they said they had they had some guidance. Look, lockdowns are coming, and it's going to become difficult to go to your GP to get medicine or whatever. And so we need to turn back to the prophetic way. This is very, very important. So the year and a half before lockdowns, this is what we were doing up and down the country. Anybody who invited us, whether it was 3 people or whether it's 30 or 300, we were going and we were teaching. All we said was, you pay our expenses and you cover that and we'll come. And that's how it was. Bismillah, alhamdulillah. So let's turn to now the main issue about what is prophetic medicine. So my question to you is, what is prophetic medicine? Progress. So all of this information that I'm going to provide to you, the slides, I probably may not follow the slides as they are, because it's sort of more in my head, but the slides are for you to turn back to, to refer back to when we go. So literally, it means it's the knowledge based upon the sayings of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And so these are the traditions that we find in the, which we call, within the hadith of looking after your body. So prophetic medicine is come from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we know it to be true. We know it to be from a divine source, and therefore it's haqq. Because whatever the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us, it came through wahi, and therefore it's based on the truth. Whereas science-based medicine comes through hypotheses, experiments, research, development, etc., practical application. Some things work, some things don't work. We find that, for example, cholesterol, which we've been told for years is bad, subhanallah, the research has just shown it to be good. It's not harmful at all, which we, for example, myself, I've known, and I've always sort of said, well, I won't use the words, but I've always said, be careful. So whatever the Rasul has told us, it's come from a divine source, it's come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, therefore it contains the truth and nothing but the truth. So it's based upon that. So the Prophet has given us this guidance on how to preserve good health and prevent disease, illness, ailments. So it has both a prevention and a cure aspect. Now, it may surprise you that the medical fraternity, for example, doesn't allow us to say there is a cure for cancer. There have been many medical doctors who have been disciplined for saying there is a cure. But what is it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is kind and merciful. Before he created the disease, he created the cure. It goes hand in hand because of his mercy and rahmah upon us. So we know that there is a cure for everything. And the curer is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not the medicine, not the doctor, the tabib, tabiba, not the practitioner, not the equipment, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he wills, the cure will happen. We will be cured. And we find that many illnesses and conditions come from our reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And reliance meaning tawakkul. So before, if we go back to the first slide, therefore, in terms of finding the cure, the Prophet ﷺ has said, go and find the cure. Go to one practitioner, tabib, 2, 3, 4, 30, because wherever that cure, wherever the cure is there for you, and if Allah wills, whenever and whichever means is going to come, it will come, because Allah can cure us without any medicine, because He is the curer. So both the disease and the cure comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is the curer. And the Prophet ﷺ is our doctor, is our tabib, because if we go back to that first slide, if you don't mind, where it was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the curer, that's right. So our Prophet ﷺ is our doctor, is our guide, is our tabib, is our light, is our instructor. That's it. And if we believe that the guidance that's come through Rasul ﷺ, inshallah ta'ala, will provide us with the cure. So this does not mean that we don't use the facilities, the equipment, the knowledge, the expertise from modern medicine, because there is a place for modern medicine. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Muslims the opportunity to develop the sciences. And we had that golden period in Islam, where our scientists were, mashallah, tabarakallah, were gifted with this, with the gift to go and research and develop. And a lot of the knowledge, for example, that we have is based on Islamic principles and Islamic expertise and knowledge and experience. To give you an example, the great physician Ibn Sina of the 13th century, he was an apprentice who started his travels from Uzbekistan right down to Morocco, the Maghreb, and along the way he learned, and then he came back to Persia, Iran, where he became the main physician of the courts. And his book, the Al-Qanun, is still used by many of the universities today. It's called Al-Qanun, the canon. And right up to the 17th century and 18th century even, the knowledge that he had put in his books was used by the across the world. But now that has been taken from us and it's been given to other people, and so people travel to Europe and America for this, for their PhDs and for further education, because the expertise is here. So there is room for modern medicine, and we need to access modern medicine, for example, blood tests and all the other basic primary care, as well as secondary care. But the guidance from the Prophet always must be paramount. So Allah is the curer, the Prophet ﷺ is the means, is the wasila, and the practitioner, the tabib, the doctor, tabiba, is the wasila, the means. So all of the knowledge that we have is we just the means, and this is very important in terms of practice that myself, for example, can't cure. So many people come and say, "Oh, mashallah, tabarakallah, you've been recommended. Come to me because I treat the sisters, the women, and you can cure us." And that's the first thing we have to put right. So the very first principle of prophetic medicine is our intention. So the intention is what will we get, and it's the first hadith that everything is based on our intention. And so therefore we correct the intention. So today we came with the intention of sharing this knowledge, but our religion is so good that we can include everything in that intention. So this is the very first principle. And so people, when they think about prophetic medicine, and probably you do as well, you think about the fact that it's probably herbs, it's the Quran, it's a number of factors, but go back. And so go back to the intention, make that, give, and so this is the first principle. I'm going to talk about the principles about the prophetic medicine. And secondly, then we know that Allah is the curer, and the cure can only come from Allah, but we have the means to seek that cure and the guidance from the Tabeeb, the practitioner, in terms of how we can apply the information that will be given. Having understood that, we go back then to the next principle. We're not there yet, actually. We're not even there. I'm not even going there. I'll tell you when to change the slide, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so so the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was given to Rasulullah, who's given us. We're not even on this slide yet, sister. We don't need to actually use the slides, inshallah. Yeah, just stay on them, bismillah. Okay, so then we know that what are the other principles? Firstly, as I said earlier, reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, through my research, and I've done plenty of research, everything that we found through in terms of health was that those people who have a faith, who believe in a higher being, who believe in a God, who practice their faith, whether they are Roman Catholics, whether they are Orthodox Jews and Muslims, or just believe in a higher, spiritual realm, entity, whatever you want to call it. Of course, for us, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their recovery is quicker and better and stronger because they have mental and spiritual assistance and their reliance on God, on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for Muslims, alhamdulillah, we have this tawakkul, that Allah is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And alongside tawakkul, we have to have then the yaqeen, the belief in Allah as the curer, in Rasulullah as the guidance, and the doctors that we are inshallah seeking knowledge from or seeking ilaj, treatment from, that have yaqeen. But ultimately the yaqeen is in Allah as the curer. And those people who are ill, who come to me when I started to practice, they were ill for a very long time, and they used to say, but we've been ill a long time, and of course we have tawakkul, of course we have yaqeen, but we're still ill. And so we have to then think about the principles of what I mentioned in the Quran. And what does Allah tell us? Sabr. Those who have sabr and salat, read their salat, sabr and salat come together, salah and sabr. You've got to have sabr, because illness can come for a number of reasons. And so, of course, patients will say, but we have sabr. Now what do we, you're telling us we've been having sabr, patience for so many years. What next? And then it's shukr. Shukr, sabr and shukr come together. Patience and thankfulness, gratitude for what we have, because we're alive. We have the opportunity to turn to Allah. We have our faculties, And yes, we're not in the best of health, but alhamdulillah, you know, we have an opportunity to do sajda, to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So those are the things we speak about before we even start treatment. And then we move on into the other aspects, which is looking at the dietary aspect, and spend a lot of time on diet. We're going to come on back onto diet, and exercise alongside the sunnah remedies of exercising the body, because the body, as the Quran tells us, has a haqq, has a right over us, and the body is going to speak to Allah about how we treated the body when we stand in front of him on that day of judgment. And then the next aspect is using the other remedies. So your herbs, your oils, your hijama, and various other remedies such as aromatherapy, the sound therapy, massage, various other therapies that are included within the process. And so in terms of the principles of prophetic treating a patient, it's using all of these principles, the information we have about the diet of the patient, their sleeping patterns, their eating patterns, their day-to-day life, their activities, the pressures, the stresses, the temperament of the individual, and then based on all of that, putting together a treatment plan, which is based on all of that knowledge. And within that, we have the spiritual remedies, which I will talk about as well. So this is essentially what prophetic medicine is, and how we use this knowledge during a consultation with the patient, getting all the information to then start to do the ilaj. So moving on then to the next slide, if you don't mind. Bismillah. So intention, yaqeen, tawakkul, sabr, shukr, and then imal salihat. So focusing on huquq Allah and huquq al-ibad. So understanding where the patient is in terms of their spiritual, not spirituality, but spiritual strength. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the ruh, the soul, so much power that if it's nourished with its nourishment, the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran, the salah, it can repel disease. And this was my point earlier about those who have a faith are able to deal with illnesses in a much more positive way. That for us, we say qadar Allah, it's from Allah, and therefore we use that knowledge, that reliance and tawakkul to deal with that ailment. And so there is huquq Allah, fulfilling the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and huquq al-ibad, fulfilling the rights of people, and within that the environment and animals, because our Prophet ﷺ was rahmatul lil alameen. Therefore he was a rahmah for the alameen, for everything that is within the alim, within this world, which is the environment, which are the animals in the sea, above, down, underground, everywhere, because it's Allah's creation. And so one of the reasons why my teachers tell us that we are ill is because of the way that we are not fulfilling the obligations that are placed upon us in terms of huquq Allah. We're neglectful of our salah and other things, and huquq al-ibad. And so we've got to understand in the treatment process where the patient is with all of that, and then put together guidance for them so that they can then start to nourish the soul. And this is our strapline, Al-Nasiha Services, nourishing the soul. Ultimately, the thing that is alive within us is the soul. Is housed within the body, and the body is just the house. But if the soul, if we're looking after the body, for example, exercising and eating well, but we're not nourishing the soul, there'll be an emptiness. The heart will be empty, and therefore that emptiness, it doesn't matter how much wealth you have, they will never be content, because Allah tells us that only with the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the heart content, and those hearts which are devoid of his dhikr are not content, are always searching for something. Okay, so understanding this aspect of the patient is important, and guidance. As my teachers, I noticed, were guiding people, because the Prophet ﷺ has spoken more about the spiritual ailments which manifest in physical and mental ill health, and given us guidance about those spiritual ailments than, and of course there is information about the physical aspect. But remember, people were not ill so as they are now. Modern day illnesses have come from various reasons for why we are ill. Stress is one reason, our lifestyle is another reason, and so on and so forth. So understanding all of this from the patient is very important, of the patient is very important. So then let's look at the diet, because prior to modern times, I guess, not so long ago though, just about 70, 80, maybe 100 years ago, or even less, depending on where you live, we used to eat locally and in season, and we used to just prepare, food which was in season and sourced locally. And that's what the Prophet did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ate locally and ate in season. Yet he was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he could have had anything. And we are eating things that are imported to our countries from thousands of miles, and they're out of season. And so that in itself means the food looks very nice on the surface, our fruits and everything, but inside they have no taste, no nutrition. And so we also know that the whole food chain, or you should know, or go and do research if you don't know, has been corrupted. So there are pesticides, insecticides, there are herbicides, there are lots of things that are being sprayed and put in the ground. And so by the time the food reaches us, it's either been genetically modified, or it's got so many chemicals that even though we may be buying organic, it's making us ill, because of the chemicals we're ingesting through not just the food, but all the water, because it's been treated and so on, the chloride, the fluoride, everything that goes in there. And as well as that, the rainwater is now also polluted, as the Prophet. So all of the hadiths that the Prophet ﷺ has told us are unfolding, because we're in the end times. So food is very important in terms of our ill health and our recovery. And the hadith is that the food, the head of the disease is the diet, and the cure of the disease is the diet as well. And so in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us guidelines on how to preserve good health and prevent disease. And so what does he say? Subhanahu wa ta'ala, eat of the good things we have provided for you. Sorry, go back. Sorry. I'll tell you when to change the slide. Okay, sorry, go back. Eat of the good things we have provided for you, for your sustenance, but commit no excess therein, lest my wrath should justly descend on you, and those on whom descends my wrath do perish indeed. Eat of the good things, meaning halal, which we all look for. We all look for the halal sign, but we forget it has to be tayyib. The two things go hand in hand, halal and tayyib. So a lot of the time, the food we are ingesting has been mixed and it's changed from its asl, its original, to other things. And this also applies to the medicine that we are eating. If you do my course, I go into all of this in much more depth. So therefore, we are eating and overeating. And so we have a huge problem of obesity because of the types of food we are eating. So one is the food we are eating is not local, is not in season. So in the winter, we can get foods which are really suitable for the summer season. And in the summer, we get foods which are more ideal for the winter. And so all of this has got mixed up. And so we can access any type of food from anywhere in the world. Our supermarkets are overflowing, but we complain. So there is no gratitude. So therefore, not only should we be eating halal, but we should be eating tayyib. And so this excess that we are eating is making us ill because we are overeating, over-consuming. I'm talking about the Western countries. And there are millions of people, billions, who are going without even one meal. So this means that we are cut off from not only our food chain, the crops are polluted, even though it may be organic soil. The rain that's coming is now polluted with all sorts of things. And so it's filtering into the food and through us. The animals, if you look at the animals and animal husbandry, how animals are kept, how they are treated, how they are done ziba. Now, for example, ourselves, my husband and I, we stopped eating meat a long time ago because of the stress that the animals are in. And that stress, if you are stressed, what happens to your body? Think about that. It begins to perspire, we get tense, we're releasing a lot of adrenaline. That's in our blood. The animals go through the same. When they are locked up for long, long periods, they're given food which is not suitable for them, mixed again, and then they are injected with growth hormones. And so therefore, all of that is coming into us. And if you just take meat as an example, we Muslims are eating too much meat. And so think about how much meat did the Prophet ﷺ eat in their lifetime? Think about that question. And I'll give you the answer at the end, remind me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful. He does not punish us. We do things which bring about this punishment upon us, meaning that we don't look after our body. We don't eat from the halal and tayyib sources. And this is not just about eating, it's about how our income comes from. How are we earning that money? Is it in a halal way? Are we paying our dues? Are we giving our sadaqah? Are we giving the zakah? All of these things matter. They matter. This is what is making us ill. Because otherwise, Allah tells us clearly the punishment will come upon us, meaning ill health. So next slide, please. And so because we are overeating and indulging, it's the main cause of illness. And some people say, well, don't eat that much. We don't, that might be right. But however, the types of food, they don't suit us because we have a temperament. So a dominant temperament of hot, cold, wet, or dry, and then compounded temperaments, hot and dry, hot and wet, cold and dry, cold and wet, and secondary temperaments. So understanding those temperaments, sorry, go back. Sorry, go back. Yeah. So no, sorry, about just stay here. I will move on, inshallah ta'ala. And so no, sorry,
I'm not sure why it's accidentally going a bit forward. Am I supposed to be on this one?
No, the next one.
Oh, okay.
Which you were at. I'll tell you when to change it.
Because people are still joining in their waiting room, so when I'm accepting it, it's clicking both.
Okay, sorry about that.
No,
okay, I'll carry on.
No.
So temperament, your dominant temperament, your compounded secondary temperament, and then your tertiary, and so on. So these, your secondary, your tertiary, compounded temperament changes. So just like the seasons change, this is what happens to us from our childhood to our youth to our middle age to our older age, elderly. When we become elderly, our food requirement changes, and so therefore, just move forward. Yeah, the next one, next slide. What we need to be, just there, here, yes, thank you. So what we need to be aware of is that we are eating halal and tayyib, and we're not filling the stomach. Now, how big is your stomach? Do you know? Is the gut, the digestive tract, is long, is huge. It's about 20 meters, but your stomach is about the size of your fist. So this is my fist. And so the Prophet ﷺ has told us not to overeat, but to divide it into 3 portions. 1, 2, 3. 1 for food, 1 for water, and the 3rd for air, meaning leave it empty. So our portion should be just about this much. Look at your own wrist and you'll understand. Look at a child's wrist. Fist, sorry, I'm saying wrist, fist. Now, a child can only eat so much, but when we begin to overfeed that child, oh, it's not eaten, it's, etc., then all of this will lead to other conditions. Asthma, for example, eczema. These are all causes of this overindulgence and the wrong type of food for that person's temperament. So it's sufficient. What does the Prophet ﷺ say? Is the son of Adam does not fill any vessel worse than his stomach. It is sufficient for the son of Adam to eat a few mouthfuls to keep him going. If he must do that, not to fill his stomach, then let him fill 1/3 with food, 1/3 with drink, and 1/3 with air, which I've just told you. This is the Prophet speaking. Look at our food. What are we eating? What time are we eating? What type of foods are we eating? On the go, junk food, sugars, white flour, etc., etc. So this is making us ill. So we go back to the guidance from the Prophet. And one of the ways of helping ourselves is through fasting. Think about Ramadan, how good we feel in Ramadan. Not are we not eating, but we are running to do good works, keeping on top of our salah, our Quran, feeding people, giving charity. This is nourishing the soul. So that our food becomes the least of our priority. Our connection to Allah and the Prophet becomes the main priority. And this is why fasting is one of the treatments that the remedies that we prescribe to a patient depending on the illness. Next slide, please. And so the relationship between diet and illness is absolutely critical. And Ibn al-Qayyim, who is one of the forefathers of Tibb and Nabawi, may Allah be pleased with him, he explains the above hadith, that the majority of illnesses are due to improper dietary habits, eating in excess of what the body needs, and taking foods that have low nutritional value. So the foods that we're eating today, they look very good on the surface, on the outside. They look very, because we've been manipulated to eat foods which look perfect. But food, actually, if you grow food, we grow our own food. We've been doing that for quite a number of years. And, the carrots are never, that long and never perfect shape. Neither are the peas or the cauliflower. We grow a lot of our food in the summer. And so food is not meant to be perfect looking, but it's how we are now manipulated, that if it's got a dent in it, if it's bruised, we don't buy it. And this is, we're being ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next slide, please. So focusing on the patient's diet, their consumption is very, very important. And so modern day medicine is also telling us about the relationship between the gut microbiome, which is made up of trillions and trillions and trillions of bacteria, virus, and fungi, which is located in the digestive tract, which we need, and a balanced microbiome, results in good health. And a gut which is out of balance, where the microbiome is unhealthy, will produce toxins, and these toxins will enter the bloodstream. And when they enter the bloodstream, eventually they will cause disease. So if you've got a poorly gut, which most of my patients do, constipation, diarrhea, IBS, all types of colon diseases, it's not good. We've got to treat the gut first. So when I say first, alongside other things, but it's very important, because the gut is one aspect of our immune system. It's the skin is the largest organ of the immune system, but the gut is also. And the gut and the brain, there is a nerve, the vagus nerve, which it connects the two, and they talk to each other. So if you look at your brain or a picture of the brain, and you look at a picture of the gut, they're very similar, because they have similar cells. And if your gut is healthy, inshallah ta'ala, you will be healthy. And if your gut is unhealthy, there'll be illness, because the microbiome, all of that bacteria, the good bacteria, is out of, has been reduced, has been decreased, and the bad bacteria. So there's be flatulence, there'll be all sorts of things going on in the gut. So it's important to repair and restore the gut. Otherwise, the disease will when I call it a disease, the illness, the ailment, it doesn't happen overnight. Think about a tree. We put a seed, grow the seed, and the seed then begins to root first, always roots, and then it shoots, and then 2 leaves, and then 4 leaves, and it grows, and then the stalk, and then the trunk, and then the branches, the leaves, and the fruit. When the fruit, the tree gives fruit, it's mature. The same happens with illness. And the hadith about illness, it starts in the gut. And that's what the alternative practitioners are saying also. I'm not sure about New Zealand, but here in the UK, no doctor is going to talk to you about your diet or repairing the gut. You go to a doctor and you say, I've got constipation, I've got diarrhea. They may listen, they may not. So therefore, treating the gut is important. And next slide, please. So I spend a lot of time, sorry, yes, that's just a picture to highlight what I've just said. I spend a lot of time talking to my patients about their food, their intake, their lifestyle as well. And so, looking on that. So I've just repeat, what do the Muslim Tabib say? The stomach is the head of the disease and the head of the cure. And a diet can intensify your illness, and a diet can prevent your illness. So focusing on the temperament of the individual, if they're hot, we're not going to prescribe hot foods for them. So we're going to prescribe foods which are cooler. If they're dry, we're going to prescribe foods which have got more moisture. So we're trying to rebalance the gut and rebalance the organs. So people say, if I say to them, oh, you're very dry, you've got a dry temperament, they say, well, I drink a lot of water. Well, that's why you're drinking a lot of water, because there's a lot of dryness. But the dryness is basically in the organs. So the organs are becoming dry. And the liver is one of the main organs where the temperament is the mizaj, we call it, is formed. And the liver has to be in good health. And so there's a lot of things that are taken into consideration. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I've just mentioned, think about your own diet. What are you consuming? What are the children consuming? And if you're consuming all of these things, you've got to reconsider. Sugar is the main cause of illness, and it's in everything. And part of it's deliberate. And I'm not going to go into all of that today. If you do my course, or if you ever invite me to New Zealand, I'll come and talk to you more about this. Sugar. So sugar creates inflammation in the body, and the inflammation is what causes illness. If you've got a healthy immune system, inflammation, the body the immune system can fight that inflammation and reduce it and remove it. And if the immune system is weak, it causes inflammation. The sugar then adds and inflames the body more, as do then the bad fats that we're having. So good fats are butter, ghee. So for example, it's the processed fats which are very harmful. Wheat, because the wheat that is used is what is primarily, they've taken off the husk of the wheat, so and that white flour is used in all the bakeries and pastries and cakes and biscuits and so on, and bread, and dairy. Now all of these things we should be able to eat. So when going back to the inflammation, as the body becomes more and more inflamed, the immune system is trying to fight it. Eventually it overcomes and it burns out. And so then autoimmune diseases occur. There shouldn't be any autoimmune diseases, because the immune system should be the first point where we're trying to bring it back into order, to strengthen it through the prophetic remedies. So it's the dairy, which should be okay. Now the dairy, why people become intolerant is because they are adding various hormones to the milk which don't suit us, many people, and they become intolerant to lactose and so on. And again, I don't have time to go into that, but think about your diet, because it's a source of illness. Next slide, please. And this is where your microbiome is in the gut, and so I need to just put my glasses on to do this a bit. And yes, so this is how then the disease begins to the seed begins to fruit and move, but it can be reversed, because Allah is the curer and there is a cure for everything. You need the right practitioner, Tabeeb, to be able to guide you and help restore that gut, inshallah. So how disease happens. pH levels have to be neutral, and so on. So this slide will help you understand the point I'm making. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've spoken about this. So you've got to include in your diet a nutritionally balanced diet that promotes the gut microbiome. And some foods have been given the status of superfoods due to their anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antiviral, anti-diabetic, anti-cancerous, all of these antis, and boost the immune system. And they've been, subhanallah, all recommended by the Prophet ﷺ. So think about the foods in the Quran. Think about the foods that the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned or liked. The pumpkin and all of the pumpkin family. So your cucumbers, your courgettes, your pumpkins, all of them are good. The Prophet ﷺ loved pumpkin. And you know what? He loved meat also. But in his whole lifetime, he only had a leg of lamb, the meat equivalent to a leg of lamb. And the Prophet ﷺ used to give sacrifices of camels, 100 camels. So could he not have access to that? Of course. But everything in balance. And at the age of, what we now know as the latter years, the Rasul ﷺ and the Ashab Ikram were engaged in jihad, fierce jihad. So you need the stamina, you need the ability. We don't have the stamina, the ability now. Everybody's just too tired, fatigued, all of this is because of inflammation, because of the diet and lack of exercise. So the foods, for example, are one I've mentioned. The prophetic food is the pumpkin, the black seed, habat al-barakah. What has the Prophet ﷺ has told us about this? There is a cure for everything in the blessed black seed. It's got to be the right one now. The habat al-barakah, it must be najala sativa, except for death. Can't prevent old age. It can't stop death. But if you believe that, and that's what we treated patients with in the lockdowns during COVID, black seed and other remedies. So subhanallah, the Prophet's told us, but we either don't know, or the knowledge has been hidden, or subhanallah, we are turning to other sources. And part of it is because this knowledge was passed on through word of mouth. So our great-great-grandparents passed it on to them and then passed them back. And it's called tawatur. And then there was points came where it got cut off. And that is due to the medical fraternity becoming very powerful and very organized, that everything that was they didn't agree with, it was sort of dismissed. So anything that comes from the East, like hijama, like the alternative way, well, it doesn't have the same status. And this is what we have been conditioned to think. It doesn't have the same status. Yet Allah sent the Prophet as the ultimate guide for us. And so what we need to do is to go back and repair the gut, and go back and repair the body. The body is through exercise. Next slide, please. So we are not exercising. So some of the superfoods, and the next slide. So we are not exercising. We've got to exercise. When we exercise, what happens is that the toxins, the dead matter, the waste that happens through the metabolism of the food in the cells is released in the muscle, but it doesn't get pushed out into the bloodstream. Why? Because the bloodstream, because the muscles do not have a pump, whereas the blood is pumped through the heart. The muscles need to push everything into the lymphatic system where there is no pump, and that happens when we exercise, really good exercise. We're sweating, and so it could be gardening. Our salah is our exercise, 20 minutes, the doctors tell you. And if you count the time for the fard, 5 fard that we recite every daily, it's 20 minutes in total. There you go. And so we then exercise, change our diet. The prophetic foods, look, there's pomegranate, there's Injil. Allah swears by the Injil and the olive. Bismillah ar-Rahman wa tini wa zaytun. And therefore the grapes, everything that's mentioned in the Quran, everything that's mentioned in the Hadith, foods are good for us. And so exercising will push that all of that waste into the lymph. The lymph will then push it out into the blood, and so it moves. And when the blood goes through the liver and through the kidneys and so on, it's flushed out. And some comes through perspiring. When we fast, it's an excellent way. That's why we have the Sunnah days of fasting, Monday and Thursday, what the Prophet fasted. Or we have the Yom Bid, the 3 days, the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And these are very, very important, because what happens is that worms and parasites and so on increase, and change the gut microbiome. And the Prophet ﷺ has recommended which exercises? Archery, swimming, horse riding. Prophet ﷺ ran. Prophet ﷺ used to walk as if they were running, a power walk. Wrestling, they did wrestling, jihad, fighting, all of those things the Prophet ﷺ did. But we are potato couchers. We're just like becoming very, very lazy. So very important. And moving on to the next step. Next slide, please. So steps to health: food, diet, exercise. And these are the foods the Prophet ﷺ liked, but always in season, always local. Barley, the blessed barley, is from which talbina is made. The hadith about that is, Sayyidina Aisha tells us, may Allah be pleased with her, that the Prophet ﷺ used to say after bereavement in the family, or where somebody had a mental ill health, give them talbina, pair the talbina, add the honey to it. Dates are good. In Ramadan, we could just live off dates and water. All of these things which I've put here are beneficial. Zamzam. What can be most? We go, if you ever been to Umrah or Hajj, you can just live off Zamzam. It's a full food for us, as are 3 dates. Full meal in 3 dates. Subhanallah, that's all we need. And next slide, please. And the probiotic foods are these which I've just put for you. So you repair the gut, you restore it, you start eating probiotic foods. And next slide. And yes, and some again, next one. These are just slides. And prebiotic foods. So the prebiotic foods are what the good bacteria need to eat. What do you know about an apple a day? An apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's true. Eat your apple with the skin, wash it thoroughly, get rid of the wax, and inshallah ta'ala, it will help grow the good bacteria and flushing out. So we give advice to the patients about how they can detox. And I've got a detox channel as well on Telegram that you can join if you wish. Next slide, please. So I've spoken about exercise. I've spoken about diet. So what do we know about the golden rules? Avoid that which is harmful. So the medicine itself may be harmful because it may not be tayyib. And there should be a review of the medicine anyway. Rid the body of the harm. So we detox through fasting, through sweating, through vomiting. When the body is not well, you vomit, it's good. Sometimes a bit of diarrhea, a healthy gut and a bit of is flushing out everything. Sneezing, coughing, all of these are getting rid of the pathogens and building up the immune system through your exercise, through the remedies, through some herbs, and through the Imal Salihat, through your spiritual remedies. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just an introduction to prophetic medicine. It's a level 1 course, everything that I've spoken about, which you can do in your own time. Now, is there a slide after this? So this information, okay, so there isn't. Now, finally, what I want to talk about is the majority of my work, 95% of my work now, is helping sisters who are affected by spiritual ailments, afflictions, meaning they have been attacked by jinn, or they have sihr, magic, or ayn, evil eye, through hasad. So the Prophet ﷺ has told us that in the end times, there will be more of this. So even though we have more resources, more wealth, there is more evil eye, but not just from the ins, from the humans, but from the shayateen. And so helping sisters will come to me for treatment, primarily for, maybe just consultation or usually a consultation or hijama or something. And I discover that they have other ailments, or they will tell me they're afflicted by this. And therefore, my work now is helping them. And what do? I do ruqya. So I've learned how to do ruqya because I was sending my female patients to male Rakis, and unfortunately there wasn't. I'm not saying they're bad or anything, astaghfirullah. I'm just saying they weren't satisfied, and so my teachers then said I have to learn. So this is for about 8 years now, and it's increasing. The children, and the hadith about evil eye is that the Prophet ﷺ said that it can take a person to the grave and the camel to the pot. It is haqq. And even the prophets have warned their own children about evil eye. Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam warned his children, his 10 sons, 11, not to enter Egypt through one door, enter through different doors, so that when they came back to Egypt. So it's haqq. And magic is also, we know the Prophet ﷺ was afflicted. So anybody who says, oh, I don't believe in this, my job is not to convince. My job is just to tell you the truth, and which is like evil eye exists, so do the shayateen, the jinn. There is a surah in the Quran called Surah Jinn. Therefore, Allah has told us about the jinn, and we know that Iblis and his army, the shayateen, exist. They have a job to do, which is to take us away from the deen, make us lose our iman, and they are either sent through sihr, magic, and so they have a job to do whereby it's to destroy everything, and include, you know, financially, emotionally, spiritually, in every way, to give us harm us, to cause difficulties, problems, barriers, and also to take us away from the deen. And so a lot of people are struggling, and this is what we're doing, and we're seeing more and more of this. And so using prophetic remedies to treat people who have got sihr, magic, long-term, new magic, old magic, various types of magic. I also have another course on ruqya, which I put together for those people who are afflicted, who want to find out more. This is from my experience and my own expertise that I put together. So therefore, the clinic that we have, we don't just offer one thing. We offer everything all under one roof. So it'll be the treatment plan, the ruqya alongside with the I have an exercise class that I run, and I do it online as well. So we offer the exercise to sisters, Islamic counseling, guidance, and some people just want to talk. That's okay. So all of these under one roof. A Rahman clinic is where we offer. Our organization is Nasiha Services because we offer Nasiha. Nasiha means guidance. It also means advice. It also means sincerity. So Arabic language is very rich, many meanings, and the services obviously that we offer. And so it's a guidance service back to Allah, connecting back to Allah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is central to our work. And remembering the Prophet and connecting to the Prophet is very important, because only the Prophet is going to intercede for us on the Day of Judgment. And this is ultimately what we are working towards. Our ultimate goal is Jannah, Jannat al-Firdaus, and along the way we help people, inshallah ta'ala, through the work that we are doing. So I'm going to stop here. I've said a lot. Inshallah, it's recorded. If you want to ask some questions, I don't know whether we have time for that.
Jazakallah.
Certainly,
thank you so much. Jazakallah. Sisters, does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask? And if they'd like to put it in the chat box, I can also read it out. I'll just give it a minute in case anything's coming on the chat. Okay. What are your favorite herbs?
Oh, my favorite herbs. Luban is one of them, frankincense. We make sure that we have bukhur in the house daily, Luban. So that's, you know, it's not a herb, it's a, but it's obviously it comes from the Luban. I like my talbina. I enjoy having that in the morning for breakfast. Black seed oil, well, Allah swears, the Prophet's told us, he swears by it, but I will also swear by it for everything. You will not find any medicine in the house, everything from aches, pains to ailments, black seed oil, both black seed and the oil for massage. And subhanallah, so in our own day-to-day home, we use all of the things that, you know, I've mentioned.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't use my keyboard. I've got 2 letters. That's problematic.
No worries.
Yeah. I would like to know, I've been diagnosed with MDS, myelodysplastic syndrome, and I've since had a bone marrow transplant. I've always been a taker of my Habbatu Sauda for years and years. And then post-transplant, I, decided, inshallah, obviously there's a whole lot of chemical drugs. I'm going to go back to my Habbatu Sauda. And then I learned that the one side effect, if you can call it that, it lowers your blood pressure. And unfortunately, with my condition, I still have blood transfusions twice a month. So I stopped it. What is your opinion on that?
Yes, that's fine. I mean, any medicine should be reviewed. If you're taking it if you're taking it, for example, regularly, and it is it's going to impact on your medicine, then you should not take it and go back to it, inshallah, when you recover. It's just common sense, isn't it? But even with, you see, the medicines, that the herbs, everything that we prescribe, first of all, as I said, we have to have a full consultation. And so when people just ask, oh, I've got this condition, what should I do? It's impossible for me, because I have no knowledge about your age, your conditions, you know, your lifestyle, just everything that I've spoken about. But eventually, once I have the consultation, we'll do a review in a few months' time. And if the patient is better, alhamdulillah, that's fine, because the medicine should only be for 3 days, 7 days, 40 days maximum. And anybody who is taking any medicine beyond 40 days, it's not working. It's as simple as that. It's rooting, and it will shoot and, you know, fruit, and it will give you other side effects for which you will need to take other medicine. And so, as I said, there is room for there has to be room for modern medicine, but a lot of the time we are the medicine what we are taking, there has many side effects, and to counteract those side effects, other medicine is given, and then so it carries on. Whereas in prophetic medicine, there is a time limit. Beyond 40 days, you have to change it. You can't give that medicine any longer. Or by medicine, we mean the herbs and the treatment, that the treatment plan that is given.
Okay. Jazakallah khairan. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Oh, we have another question. Is the course that you were talking about for treatment or to teach further?
Is to teach further. For treatment, as I said, I've spent 22 years almost traveling and learning, so you need to be able to. So it's a very basic introduction. It goes into the temperaments a little bit more, and the level 2, which I'm writing, will go into the temperaments. But you know, these are courses that require, so it says it's just an introduction, a basic introduction. It's not a certificated course. If you're interested, it leads people onto then other types of, you know, it develops interest, and people have gone, my students have gone to study aromatherapy, herbal medicine, homeopathy, lots of different things as a result of, you know, connecting to the prophetic way, and then taking, you know, going on for further education, or changing their careers. But it pulls together everything that I've said and explains about the temperament, because again, say we have a patient who's diabetic, 2 patients who are diabetic, more or less the same medicine will be recommended by their GP for both doctors. The dose might be different, but it's the same. Yet both those patients may have a different temperament. One might be hot, one might be cold. And so it's going to have a different effect on different people. Whereas in the prophetic way, or Tibb and Nabawi, we will look, it's important to assess the temperament of the patient as well, and provide suitable foods and herbs for that patient.
I think someone's got their hand up. Razia?
Assalamu alaikum. Just wanted to ask, like, what's the best way to contact you?
Oh, you can contact me by email, our website, phone.
Okay. So would you be able to respond in a week or so? Is it, or does it take longer?
No. We do travel a lot. So we've just come back from Palestine. We are off to Turkey in the end of October. And in November, we'll be going to Morocco. So in Turkey and Morocco, we've got projects where we were working, you know, with the relief aid, with the earthquake area as well.
Okay, Jazakallah.
Oh, another question said, they would like to know if the modern probiotic like kombucha and kefir, are they good for us?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Yes.
And then a question about the Telegram channel that you were talking about.
Yes, if I give you the I'm a bit, I don't want to sort of press anything and lose you. I'm sure I won't, but I don't want to take the risk. So yes, I have it. So firstly, students who do the course will go onto the students group where I've got lots of students who've studied, and then we share information. I can respond back to queries, but generally students are helping each other with different types of questions. So that's a bonus of attending the course. And then I have a detox channel, detox and health channel, which is free for anybody. And so basically, you know, I put information on there in terms of detoxing and protocols for cancer, for example, and other protocols for other types of illnesses, alternative methods, you know, as well. So I will send you the link for that.
Yeah.
And then you can share that with the
if
group.
anyone would like the contact details, if you share it with me, and then I can, if you email us at community@iwcnz.org.nz, I'll put it in the chat box, and then I'll be able to forward that on. I've got a couple more questions. What would be the best recommendation for a hormone imbalance?
All right, okay. It depends which hormones, and then once I understand that, we'll be able to put a treatment for you, plan for you. One of the products that we do is comes from Turkey, so we produce it in Turkey, and it is like a tonic honey which helps to balance the hormones, which I also use myself a few times a week. And we sell quite a lot of that to help balance hormones. But essentially, it could be, I need to understand more what the ailment is, what hormones are, you know, out of balance. You male, female, I have no knowledge. So it could be a number of things. So giving from the top of my head a response is not possible, because as I've just gone into very detail, I need a lot more information about you to be able to give you a fair and balanced and, you know, ethical reply.
Oh. And then do you know any specific brand of black oil seed that is quite good? And is it okay if we have it daily?
No, you shouldn't have it daily. You know, all good things can also be harmful. You should have it according to your temperament and according to the you know, an ailment. It's better just to take a few seeds, 7 seeds, if you want to, a few times a week. And again, I would say take a seed, take a date, remove the seed from the date, and put about 7 seeds of black seed in there, and just chew that. That's better for you. People just start to take, you know, even honey. If you take honey in excess, that's not good. You know, all good things also are harmful. So everything in balance, as Allah has said. If you take some things regularly, if you become hot, your temperament is hot, it's going to have an effect on you. Okay, so that's my reply to that. And what was the other question? Sorry?
Is there a treatment in prophetic medicine for thyroid hormone?
Thyroid, underactive, overactive, it all depends what it is. The thyroid obviously is a very important organ, because for many, many things, as are all of the organs. My belief is that there is a cure for everything. And having sort of prepared you know, a treatment plan which is best for you, inshallah ta'ala, through detoxification of the body, through repairing the organ, balancing the organ through the temperament, as I've just said, inshallah ta'ala, there will be a cure. And there are other foods as well that you can eat. But just, you know, the body, if the body's already overloaded, it needs to decrease some of the load and remove the toxins. Hijama in all cases is good. And we do 3 different types of hijama. We do hijama for detox, for cleansing the body. We do hijama for that particular ailment. So that's the therapy, the cups are used for therapeutic purposes, i.e. to deal with that condition, that illness, and also hijama for sihr. So removal of the shayateen, the jinn. and using hijama in that way. So a number of ways. So there is a spiritual aspect to the hijama, and alongside that, we'll be giving a treatment, a spiritual plan as well for the patient.
And then another question that came in a couple of times was, what would you recommend as like a daily diet? Because I know that you said that the portion is quite small. So like 3 meals a day, or?
Well, if you're going to look at the prophetic way, what did the Prophet eat? Somebody said, I just want to eat prophetic, the prophetic way, and they couldn't. Okay, so it's very little, first of all, our consumption. But the diet, as I've just gone into detail, is also the whole food chain is polluted. It's, and, self-ruqya and reciting, Bismillah Rahman. People don't even say Bismillah before they eat. And so shayateen eat with us. They don't, there's all the du'as that we need to do to keep ourselves protected. They enter our homes if we don't recite the du'as and things like that. It all affects us, this negative energy. So what is a good diet? My diet is going to be different to yours. I don't eat meat. Maybe you do. So I don't know anything about you to be able to recommend. But if you ask about our food, so we have a breakfast, we don't have lunch, and we just have an evening meal. That's the way we eat. And that is very similar to almost fasting. Intermittent fasting, fasting on the Yom al-Bid days, fasting according to the Sunnah days. We do all of that. So if you've got it depends what for example, eggs. Now, some people can't tolerate milk. Some people can't tolerate eggs. Without myself knowing, about you, for you personally, I won't be able to advise you what's a perfect diet. I think all foods are good. We need to understand why is it that we're eating some foods and not other foods.
Perfect. Okay, last one. Is there any treatment in Tibb Nabawi that will help in reducing mucus, please?
Mucus. Mucus is wetness in the body, so that's got to be treated.
Okay. So
that your dominant mizaj is wet. Hence the excessive production of mucus. It's inflammation also, and maybe your saliva glands are working. So yes, the wetness is causing that excessive production of mucus, and in the lungs as well. If you've got a lot of phlegm and coming, so really without knowing what mucus could be occurring for a number of reasons. So need to understand again. I mean, even if you ask this question to a GP, your GP is not going to be able to reply and give you a detailed answer without seeing you, without talking to you first. Mm-hmm. So the same principle applies. But my answer to everything is there is a cure for everything. And if there's not, then it's not meant to be. Then this is up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then you're tested, and we're going to have to persevere, because those tests, because of the illness, are reducing your sins. So there's a blessing in everything. So prophetic medicine is actually changing the mindset. We get it, but applying it is not that easy. I know from experience, people get it, people get excited, people come, and then they don't apply it. It's hard work for them. It's easy for them just to carry on taking their medication.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Jazakallah khair. It's been amazing. I know a few people are messaging me asking for your contact details, so I've put in the chat box our email. So again, that's community@iwcnz.org.nz. I've also put in a link to a feedback form on the Zoom series feedback form. So if the attendees could please fill that out, and if anyone would like further contact Nasiha Services, let me know. I've also recorded this because a few people have messaged me requesting that it gets sent to them, so please do email me and I'll be happy to share that as well. So Jazakallah kul khair, Dr. Alia. That's been an amazing insightful Zoom session, so Jazakallah. Thank you so much for your time.
Inshallah, we'll finish with dua and turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, Jazakumullah khairan for inviting me. Inshallah ta'ala. I do respond. Might take a couple of days, but we do. Inshallah ta'ala. So we finish by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A'udhu billahi ismil alim minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil anbiya'i wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ya Allah, we turn to you and you alone, Ya Rabbil Alameen. We came together for this session. We thank you for giving us this opportunity. Allah Pak, if I have made any mistakes, I'll ask you to forgive me. Ya Allah, for whatever intention we had in our hearts, we came together. Allah, accept those intentions. Ya Allah, we're asking you for good health. We're asking you for good health for us, for our families, for the Ummah Rasul Sallam, for the whole of creation. And Ya Allah, we're asking for forgiveness. And Ya Rabbil Alameen, we're asking that we meet again in khair. And Allah Pak, we ask that our ultimate goal, which is to meet you, Ya Allah, we return back to you with our iman intact. Ameen. Allahumma ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala sayyidil anbiya'i wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.